Alright guys, welcome to VALORANT News. An absolutely crazy day in the VALORANT world yesterday with confirmation from VCT, EMEA that Movistar Koi have been kicked straight out of the league. This has caused huge drama from top to bottom and people are scrambling to try and figure out why has this change happened and what are the true reasons behind Riot Games' decision. eBay and many of the people at Koi not happy about this at all. There is a big theory right now behind the scenes that they've been kicked because Riot want Gentle Mates to come back into the league. Is that the truth of the matter? Is there more to this than initially meets the eye? Very much into your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. Let's get into the drama. Moving on from Demon 1 DRG, we've got these 9 teams are going to be at the Ascension Americas. It was Winthrop Gaming that qualified from North America as well. So Envy, TSM, Winthrop from North America, 9Z Globant, Shinden, 6 Karma, Stellar Gaming, Red Canids, and then Team Solid, I think were the final team to qualify last night from Brazil. But I know what you guys want to talk about, so let's talk about it. EMEA, VALORANT update as of last night, and this is what they have to say. Riot Games has terminated Movistar Koi's partnership agreement with the VALORANT Champions Tour EMEA following a breach of the team's contractual agreement with the league. So keep that in mind, the breach of the contractual agreement. Movistar players will be free agents at the end of the season. Since the transfer window is closed, an exemption that allows players who have been dropped from a roster outside the transfer window to be signed for a limited period of time will apply. Given the circumstances, this period has been extended until the transfer window reopens. The decision is exclusively related to VCT, doesn't involve anything else. A new team will take their place. We shall decide who that is. The league will evaluate potential replacements before announcing its decision to the community. This change will not affect Ascension. We'll still promote 2 teams after Apex and Gentlemate, as we know, got entirely relegated. But maybe Gentlemates could be back. So the interesting thing about this statement is that apart from the very first sentence, they don't say anything. They just say breach of the agreement, and that's where Riot Games leave it. So this immediately caused absolute uproar, and for good reason. There was discussion as to, okay, look, you're going to terminate their agreement. Okay, why, right? Like, what did they do? Now, they don't have to say precisely, but the more opaque things are here and the less transparent things are, the less confident people are that this decision has been made for good reasons. So understandably there was lots of discussion on it. There was even a reaction from Fnatic. They were like, hang on a second, what are we talking about here? Even Durka was in the replies. He was saying, wow, this is confusing. And then he said, yeah, I feel really sad. These guys just got Thanos snapped out of nowhere, spread some love to the players in their academy and their main team, who are both now struggling for a future. So why? Like, that was the key question, right? Why is this happening? So eBay sat down, of course he's the big name over there at Koi. He sat down for 10 minutes to discuss what happened here. Now, this statement was, I mean, obviously I'm not going to share the whole thing. I'll give you guys the highlights. There was probably a more corporate statement made by by Adam Adamu, who's kind of also the top guy over there from a, let's say, operational perspective. And, well, eBay confirms what happened. This is basically what he said. They were called into an urgent meeting by Riot Games yesterday, so as in the day before yesterday as of recording this video, but not long ago, right? In the meeting, they were informed they would be dropped. Riot dropped them due to, in their words, severe underperformance in many regards. Their VCT performance, content creation, and skin sales. So I guess to address that real quick, have Koi done much in the league over the last few years? No. Have they, maybe, we don't know the numbers on skin sales, presumably not so strong. Their content maybe not so strong. The other, apparently we'll see in a second, there were rumours that eBay's watch parties, his co-streams, were apparently a part of their contract specifically with Koi, whereas they were not necessarily with other organizations. But Movistar Koi believes that they had a way around that, and we'll see how that transpired in a second. But he was frustrated, eBay, and probably for good reason, that as far as they are concerned, they had no real notice, no real warning here. It's not a 6 month, it's not a 3 month, it's, you know, no, he does say there was no type of warning, but we'll see in a second that apparently there were some warnings this was going to be happening, but it's the timing, of course, which is very frustrating. And of course, they're frustrated because they just signed their coach for the new year. They've got to inform him he's no longer got a job, and all the other things they were working on behind the scenes. Now, the interesting thing about this is, and the theory behind this from many, and whether you guys agree or disagree with this, feel free to let me know in the comments, but he believes that gentlemates is a key feature here. He believes that Riot want to have gentlemates in the league, and because they got relegated and have no intention to, obviously they have no way to stay because of the rules that Riot have imposed, that is the decisive factor, and that Koi wouldn't have been dropped, but because gentlemates left, they want to drop Koi and come up with reasons to do so for getting gentlemates back into the league. He thinks Koi have been the scapegoat for this. He makes it clear again, it's speculation. That is his belief. Now, understandably, lots of the reaction to this was to say, okay, there was 1 day notice given to this team that they were going to be terminated, and they say in the initial announcement that there was a breach of contract. So I think understandably people are looking at this and saying, well, surely they did something more severe. Surely there was something else that happened that they're not telling us, that, you know, like a bleed esports situation or something. And as esports Doug says, they got kicked from the VCT with a 1 day notice because they sucked and weren't selling skins. Doesn't really add up, right? Like, on paper it doesn't really add up, and as Doug says, if there was something explicit in the contract that said eBay needed to stream and he didn't, then it's on Koi. Short notice like that is cheeks though, if there wasn't really some warning or heads up. So this is just quickly the statement from the co-founder and the CEO over there, and it was a maybe more sensible statement in some respects. He pretty much says that we delivered everything, and for 25 and 26 our agreement required us to provide alternatives if we were unable to meet certain provisions. We did that. We offered strong alternatives at our own expense that provided real value, and Riot decided that those alternatives to whatever was in the contract were not acceptable. So look, Riot is basically, what he says is Riot can do this. They're within their rights to do this. It is the way that Riot have set up the structure, because they're giving a stipend to these teams. If they want to kick a team out, it's within their rights to do so, and you know, this is why Riot have done it in this way, so they have all the power, and understandably so. It's their game, it's their league, and he says it's not about our performance, it's not about our players, it's not about our content. We've been a strong partner. It's about technical details of the contract that we worked hard to meet. So, you know, there is, again, following on from this statement, and we'll see in this article right here that some journalists actually looked out and tried and figured out what was going on behind the scenes, that it does appear that they didn't necessarily have to terminate Koi. It's not like they did something that was beyond recognition. It's that they decided, based on the technical details of the contract, that they would terminate the deal rather than accepting the provisional alternatives that Koi provided. So it does appear, so Riot accused Koi of failure to immediately replace eBay as the main asset broadcasting the matches. Now, they actually did do this, but presumably not in a way that they're happy about. So this guy, Sergio, he actually did the co-streams instead of eBay, and was pretty successful in doing so. He had tons of viewers. We'll see some of the screenshots in a second. Third largest co-stream at the club level. Now look, he's not eBay, and he is obviously the main feature at, of course, Koi, so maybe it's understandable, but that was apparently a unique clause to Koi, that eBay was a crucial factor, and because they replaced him, but apparently not enough as far as Riot are concerned, then they weren't happy about that. Now, Riot claims that it flagged these shortcomings. Sources and members of Koi confirmed that concerns had been raised. They'd been told during 2024 that there were some problems, but there was obviously a merger with Movistar Koi and Movistar, you know, Movistar Riders, Mad Lions Koi and all this. They did that merger, so it caused some delays there. In January 2025, they got a real warning. The organization was saying, hey, like, look, this is what you're not doing. You're not meeting the standards. This is a problem. And they went into a meeting, they discussed what they were going to do to solve it, and as far as Koi were concerned, then there was no further warning after that. So, look, they were warned, apparently, in January. They had a meeting to say, hey, you're not meeting this, you're not meeting that. But after that, they were told, okay, we're going to do X, Y, Z. They did X, Y, Z, and they at least tried, and they were pretty happy with it. They were apparently working, the organization says, they were working with Riot on the next year's bundle. So they thought all was in the clear. And then, with 1 day notice, they were kicked out of the league. So this is very controversial because it doesn't feel like, having read this article from the sources in play, that they've done anything super egregious. It's simply that Riot have, within their own rights to do so, they've looked at the situation and said, well, we told you you've got to do this. You've actually not done that totally. You've provided alternatives. We're not happy with that, and we're going to kick you out. So, and obviously it's frustrating timing for multiple reasons for all of these different characters. So tough for the players, of course, but big drama from an organizational perspective. And understandably, their co-streamer says, look, third largest co-stream, they never cared about us, have always disregarded us in Spain and internationally, always loner without help, he says, speechless. So then it kind of adds more fuel to the fire about this idea that they're just kicking them out to put Gentlemates back in. eBay basically said, like, I don't want to be in a league where the only value they give us is that I have to stream and the rest feels like it's terrible. With Sergio, their current guy, they were fine until Gentlemates was relegated. So that's his opinion, right? That he doesn't like the league. He doesn't want to be there if the only value they see is because he's got to co-stream the games, which he didn't want to do all the time, which is probably fair enough. And they found a decent alternative, but as far as they were concerned, but the league weren't happy with that. Well, apparently eBay thinks they were happy with it until Gentlemates were relegated, and then they were looking for an excuse to bring him back in. So understandably, there was discussion as to whether this level of communication was fair from the Riot side, but at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what's fair. What matters is who has the power, and in this case, Riot have the power and Koi do not. And Koi will absolutely not stay around in Tier 2. Like, they and for good reason, I think, right? They're not going to try and get back into League. They're not going to try and say, oh, sorry, Riot, like, we'll do our best in Tier 2. Like, no, they will be out of here. It may affect their thought process to other games, even though I think Adam Adamu in his statements basically said, look, we are bigger than this game. Koi is bigger than one game, he says, right? So it's like, look, VALORANT, it is what it is, but we will keep doing things elsewhere. And even if you go to, not like it's Leah Farrier's fault, obviously, but if you go to Leah Farrier's page here and you go to the replies, you'll see that there's plenty of tweets such as this, kind of screenshotting the fact that Sergio, who was their new co-streamer, was actually doing a pretty damn good job. And, well, I don't know. There's plenty of replies to this tweet, obviously, some of which related to the global power rankings, some of which related to other things. So, do you think that the Gentlemates story has a part to play here? That is the big rumour, that they've kicked out Koi to put Gentlemates back in. Now, look, Riot have said that they will evaluate the options. They will choose whichever organisation makes the most sense. It would be likely that it's probably going to be Gentlemates, isn't it, right? Like, if the organisation's out there, it's probably going to be Gentlemates, but we'll see. If it's not Gentlemates, then it throws all of this out the window, and it's like, oh, well, they did get dropped for fair reason. And maybe they got dropped for fair reason anyway, and Gentlemates are clearly still the best replacement. But, yeah, big drama in VCT today. Feel terrible for the players who are affected by this. Absolutely last minute without any repercussions and any resources really to help them. But Gentlemates, having been relegated as an Ascension team, might now get their spot back as a partnered team. And it's just interesting, right? You look at a team like Furia. Have they done much in the Americas the last couple of years? No. They've not been competitive. They've not, I don't know, like, exactly what Riot's numbers are on what they want to see from content and all these other things. But presumably that, the contract could, if it's bad skin sales, if it's not great content, if it's bad performance, then, and Riot can basically kick out who they want with that logic. Furia could they could find a way to kick Furia out probably on those terms if they wanted to, but they're not going to do so. It doesn't seem like they are anyway, because presumably they have no good, better alternative as it stands. But in Koi's case, maybe they do. So I think, it's obviously speculation, but I can understand why people like eBay are convinced that there is more to this than initially meets the eye. But very much interested in your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care. And I'll see you next time.